Back today with another episode with Supriya Chechi. It's been a while, but we're back and we're ready to roll again. So,
Okay.
welcome Supriya Ji, Hare Krishna and Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Okay. Thank you, Kanan. Very
Uh,
happy to be back.
and
Jai
also, just
Shri Prabhupada. Yeah, go on.
sorry to interrupt. I'll just get, I'm supposed to do the incantation also. Is that okay if I can just do that?
Yeah, go do it. Do
Yeah,
it. Go
yeah.
ahead and do it. Very good. Do it.
Okay. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamnayam Dadati Swapadantikam. हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपिशा गोपिका कंठा राधा कंठा नमोस्तुते तप्त कंचना गौरंगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुत देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये पंचाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः नमो ओं विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमती भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी इति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवसादि गौरभक्तवृंदा हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे.
Okay. This is really a very auspicious way to start any class, whether you're teaching
Yeah.
or whether you are studying, because it creates a lot of auspiciousness all around, or removes the negative energy, and it's a proper etiquette to glorify those who have come before us. And this Om Agyana Tivedandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya, basically it is referring to saying thanks to whichever guru, known or unknown at this stage, who is
Giving
opening
knowledge.
your eyes. Yeah, that's right. Through knowledge, through the torch of knowledge, by shining the torch of knowledge, removing the blackest ignorance. That's the idea. Okay, and removing our lack of knowledge. Agyana
Mm.
timirandasya jnananjana shalakya. Chakshur is eyes. Unmilitam yena tasmai shiva tenama. Okay. All right, so we are going to start or continue with text 8. Just
Okay,
remember,
that's
we are already into what is famously called the Chatur
the
Shloki
Chatur.
of the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita has a Chatur Shloki, meaning 4 crucial verses coming in
Same.
continuation, one after another. And the Bhagavatam also has a Chatur Shloki like this, similarly. Now, here, the Bhagavad Gita, who decides what the Chatur Shloki is, it's not really Krishna. It is the commentators who come later who have concluded that the essence, or in parochial language, they say the kutans, meaning the
Mm.
essence, just squeeze everything out. What you really need to get out of the Bhagavad Gita is here. So that is the bhakti interpretation. I am sure the Gyanis and the Karmis, they may not agree that this is really the Chaturshloki. So let's go ahead and see what, from the Bhakti Yoga point of view, the Chaturshloki of the Bhagavad Gita is. Number 8, 9, 10, and 11. So starting with the 8th verse, shall we
Yeah.
chant this together?
Yeah.
Yeah.
अहं
Aham
सर्वस्य प्रभावो मताः सर्वं प्रवर्तते इति मत्वा भजन्ते मां भूदा भावसमान्वितः.
Twice more.
अहं सर्वस्य प्रभावो मताः सर्वां प्रवर्तते इति मत्वा भजन्ते मां बुद्धा भावसमान्वितः.
Okay.
अहं सर्व okay, should we say one more?
Yeah, sorry, I forgot. Yeah, once more. Aham.
अहं सर्वस्य प्रभावो मताः सर्वां प्रवर्तते इति मत्वा भजन्ते मां बुद्धा भावसमान्वितः.
Okay. Translation. Please read the translation.
I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who perfectly know this engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts.
Okay, so I am the source. He's basically saying he's the source of everything, and this is being hammered home into the listener and specifically into Arjuna, because it's like there is nothing beyond Krishna. So, why the wisest step would be to is just to surrender unto him. I
Hmm.
am the source of spiritual and material worlds, all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who perfectly know this engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. Right. So the wise who know this, what do? They don't just simply meditate on him. They engage in his devotional service, because it's like reciprocating with the thunderous realization that there's nothing beyond Krishna in this world, and that everything comes from him. So then the normal response would be to want to serve such a great individual in gratitude and affection or love. And so they engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. Okay, here is a long purport with some information that comes right. That is basically like summarizing what's given in more detail in the Bhagavatam, especially in the sections that deal with creation. I think that's Canto 3. Right. Please read the purport.
Yeah, a learned scholar who has studied the Vedas perfectly and has information from authorities like Lord Chaitanya, and who knows how to apply these teachings, can understand that Krishna is the origin of everything in both the material and spiritual worlds.
And yeah, and because
He can never be deviated by any amount of nonsensical commentaries or by fools. All Vedic literature agrees that Krishna is the source of Brahma, Shiva, and all other demigods. In the Atharva Veda, Gopal Tapani Upanishad, chapter 1, text 24, it is said, Yo Brahmanam vidhati purvam yo vai vedamscha gapayati sma Krishnaha. It was Krishna who in the beginning instructed Brahma in Vedic knowledge and who disseminated Vedic knowledge in the past. Then again, the Narayana Upanishad 1 says, Atha Purusho Havai Narayano Kamyata Prajaha Srijayeti. Then the Supreme Personality of Narayana desired to create living entities. The Upanishad continues, Narayanad Brahma Jayate, Narayanad Prajapatihi Prajayate, Narayanad Indro Jayate, Narayanad Astau Vashavo Jayante, Narayanad Ekadasha Rudra Jayante, Narayanad Dwadashadityaha. From Narayana, Brahma is born, and from Narayana, the patriarchs are also born. From Narayana, Indra is born. From Narayana, the 8 Vasus are born. From Narayana, the 11 Rudras are born. And from Narayana, the 12 Adityas are born. This Narayana is an expansion of Krishna.
okay, just stop here. Just one side comment. Your Sanskrit pronunciation has improved visibly. You've been doing something. You've been hearing something. Like you're
I read a lot. Like so
no,
I've been
you read
reading.
aloud. Did you say you read
Yeah, yeah,
aloud?
yeah. Yeah. I in the mornings, every day I'll be reading the Bhagavad Gita in the morning. So,
Uh-huh.
so I read the Bhagavad Gita every day, and also I think I read a lot of these the scripture, right? So,
Right.
like if I'm reading some Leelamrita or whatever book I'm reading, there will be verses here and there and all that. So I end up reading that also. Like,
Okay, because oh, that's very good. Because yeah, sometimes a reader might would get stuck with a long sentence like this coming from the
yeah,
Upanishad.
now I'm kind of a little bit used. I'm getting used to it actually now. Like,
Getting
it's not
used to
that.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, just before we get into who the 8 Vasus are and who the 11 Rudras and the 12 Adityas, just this first paragraph where Srila Prabhupada is making this point that a learned scholar who has studied the Vedas perfectly and has information from authorities like Lord Chaitanya and who knows how to apply these teachings can understand that Krishna is the origin of everything, right? And because he knows this, he's fixed in. Fine. He can never be deviated by any amount of nonsensical commentaries or by fools. Now here, this is one sentence. You will be, or rather, I am amazed at the amount of confusion there is, even at the highest levels. Especially people who you think are fairly well read and genuinely interested, but because they have not had access to the such simple and lucid explanations to be found in Prabhupada's books, particularly the Bhagavad Gita and the Bhagavatam, and also all the other small books, they even today are so utterly confused by what is spiritual and what is material. For example, I don't mean any disrespect. There is a very influential and very remarkable, slightly aged now, a scholar and you can say an enquirer who's doing wonders for our country and for our society called Rajiv Malhotra. You know, he's got this, he's like digging up and investigating and trying to warn our people of how we are going to lose our culture because there is a deliberate attempt and so on. Right, we do not do it. It's very impressive, all of it. Then if you see where he takes his spiritual inspiration from, it's pretty disappointing. He claims he's inspired by the writings of Deenadayal Upadhyay, who died at the age of 51. I think he was pushed out of a train. It was practically like a murder. This is back in the 1960s. Deenadayal Upadhyay developed some concept called integral humanism. And basically it is like a forefather of the BJP and the manifesto for the BJP and the Hindutva and so on. Okay, we're not going into all that. Now, I saw Rajiv Malhotra, rather I heard in a recording, making the astonishing and absurd statements, basically coming from Deenadayal Upadhyay, that the Jivatma manifests, exact words, the Jivatma manifests as society and social institutions like state, marriage, family. You see, they're not able to distinguish between Jivatma, that is spiritual, and all these other material constructions that are ordained by the Vedas.
So it's
They're
kind of like the in one sense it's kind of like, I mean, the Advaita, I mean, in Advaita Vedanta or in the non-dualistic school, they say that everything is one, and they
merging.
don't,
Ah, right,
and
right,
it's
right.
everything merges into the Brahman effulgence, and
Right.
so it's kind of saying that in one sense, but not saying that, like,
In,
I
in, in
mean,
reverse order. I think in
yeah, in
reverse
reverse order,
order,
in
he is
reverse
saying
order.
that the Jivatma then manifests as. Okay,
Yeah,
that's
so
helpful.
yeah.
What you are saying,
Mm.
that's helpful. But to
One
me, because
one yeah, go ahead, sorry, I'm sorry I interrupted. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, no, I said to me, it came as a like a shocker because so far everything he has been speaking of, he's always the analysis is very impressive. He's alert, he's courageous, you know, he's got that Brahmanical mind and a Kshatriya nature to protect and stand up and teach others also to defend. He is not bothered, he's not going to particularly be very obsequious or very, what is it? He's going to not bend because there's a government in
Mm.
power. If they don't live up to what he thinks are proper standards, then he criticizes them also. He won't take political sides. It's interesting.
One
Yeah,
one thing is that, I mean, he's in one sense he's like okay because he's living in America, so he's a little safe that way also. But like the thing is, actually, what the point you made is actually like, true, because like, I mean, if even if you take somebody like this person, like, like take Sadhguru also for example, he's not
right.
really, I mean, he's obviously a very popular personality
Right.
in the largest landscape,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and obviously he has followers who are, who are devoted to him, and he does teach a lot of things that are, very good and very nice and all that. But I've heard in one of somewhere he's mentioned that all the knowledge that he's got, like he's never read scriptures, like he's
And
never
yes,
read, and he
Bhagavad
never
Gita.
he's never read any scriptures, so he doesn't have any scriptural knowledge. And his is more of like a feeling sort of thing, and he's obviously devoted to Shiva. There's also
Right.
nothing wrong with, so there's nothing wrong with anything that he's doing, but it's just that, like, I mean, if generally, like, even if you are not very good at verse with scripture or whatever, that's still not a problem. But
Mm.
you know somebody being like very proud of the fact that they're not versed in scripture is
Right,
like,
right, right.
is in one sense saying that, you don't really value the scripture all that much.
I
So
also have problems with that. I've heard him say that, and I feel it influences all his followers to not bother to check out what scripture is saying. I also
mm,
have problems. I've heard these statements by him, and specifically, I find it problematic because, on the one hand, in interviews regarding material issues like, where is India going and ecology and
yeah,
environment,
and then
he
and then
claims
he yeah.
he claims that his heartbeat is Bharat. Okay, he
mm,
says something like every time his heart pumps, beats, it is Bharat, Bharat. It is saying. So how then does he choose to ignore what is part of this Bharat heritage, which is just foundational? Bhagavad Gita is very foundational. How
mm,
can he say? Okay, he may say he prefers the Yoga Sutras or whatever has led him on a particular path, which Shiva is the Adi Yogi. That's okay. He may say that. But how can he claim that almost as a matter of pride that he has not read the Bhagavad Gita? Bhagavatam he doesn't even mention. But I think it's very misleading. And it's unfortunately, I have a suspicion that people who are attracted to are probably not, are at least it might be
It's
them.
it's understandable, because the thing is that, even in my own, like, my own personal experience also,
Yeah,
people are not that invested in reading the Bhagavad Gita or reading it that much. In
intellectually.
Yeah, intellectually
They're not
they're not
intellectually
yeah,
inclined.
they're not invested that much, and they don't. A lot of them, I've heard people say that they're either scared to read the Gita. Some people are saying they're scared to read the Gita because I don't know why. When you ask them, they'll be like, I think it's mainly that when you start reading something that is that could potentially change your entire, like, worldview,
Right,
like, could change your worldview. There is a there's something scary about the unfamiliar, like something scary about that, and you need like, a leap of faith in one sense to be like,
right.
okay, I'm just going to try it out, like, you have, like, certain people have some certain set barriers, but when you read something like this, it kind of breaks all that down, so people
Right,
are scared to read it because all that goes
right.
away.
I
And
guess that's the
so,
answer.
yeah,
That's the answer, and that those types are happy with a leader who is saying that he hasn't read the Bhagavad Gita, and they don't seem personally inclined to try to find out what the Bhagavad Gita is saying. Anyway, so right, so I think we have a lot to be thankful for,
yeah,
because Prabhupada's such simple and lucid explanations, both Bhagavad Gita, purpose in the Bhagavatam, that make everything like it just everything falls into place. What is
but
Jiva? What is
as
Paramatma?
it is, as as he
As
says,
it is,
as
as
it
it
is.
is. Yeah, but as you correctly said, I think what I specifically mentioned a little earlier, this concept of Jivatma manifesting as,
Yeah,
social institution, it is really that monotheistic, impersonal, everything is one, and that one can be Paramatma or Jivatma because they are also one, and then they come and produce. I think that's where this thinking is coming from. Thank you. Anyway, all right. So from and now here they are talking about new from Narayana, Brahma is born, right? That we know, and from Narayana the patriarchs are born, the patriarchs. From Narayana Indra is born, right? From Narayana the 8 Vasus are born. The 8 Vasus, apparently they are 8 brothers who fought, who got into big trouble after stealing a cow that belonged to Vashishta Muni.
mm,
Okay, the eldest of the Vasu brothers was, I think Pratyush was his name. I think so. No, his name was not Pratyush. His name was Prabhash, maybe, not too sure. But his wife desired that was some lovely cow in the next compound, and they didn't realize it's Sage Vashish. So the eldest of these Vasu brothers engaged the 7 other brothers also to steal the cow. And when Sage Vashish came to know, he got very upset and he cursed them. And then later they apologize. And he is not able to retract the curse, but he modifies it slightly. Basically, I think he curses them to death. So
okay,
the idea is that the curse gets modified, that 8 of them will take birth, and then they will take birth and then quickly
immediate
die.
die. Yeah,
So that is how I think
the
Ganga,
Mahabharat. Oh no, sorry,
Mahabharata. That's right. That's right.
is that
Mahabharata.
the thing in that, the children of Shantanu and
That's right.
Ganga,
That's
that
right.
one? Yeah.
The only one of them survives. That is, he turns out to be this
Bhishma.
Bhishma Pitamaha, because apparently Bhishma Pitamaha was the eldest Vasu who planned that whole robbery, the stealing.
Oh,
So he is not, doesn't have this. He is not allowed to just get away being born and dying. He has to apparently, like live out a normal life and take all the burdens of household life without ever actually becoming a householder himself,
hmm.
something like that. Therefore, Bhishma Pitamaha is, as we know, the rest of it, the history, because that was the eldest Vasu. So those are the 8 Vasus. Then from Narayana, the 11 Rudras are born. All I know is they just different forms of Lord Shiva, and the 12 Adityas are the 12 sun gods. I don't, excuse me, have more information where they actually like operate. The 11 Rudras, is it in different? ages or planets, and so also with the 12 Adityas. I'm not sure. I don't know.
Hmm.
Okay.
Kastuba Prabhu made a point actually in one of the episodes. Was it Kastuba Prabhu, or I think maybe no, it was actually Swayam Bhagavan Keshav Maharaj. It was Keshav Maharaj
Okay.
who made this point. He said
Yeah.
that he's also like I feel like he's one of the best. Like he knows like all the purports and verses,
I
from so
see.
many scriptures. So he mentioned something like I think somebody asked him the question like what is the like I think what is the difference between an expansion and an
Uh-huh.
incarnation?
Okay.
So because sometimes they will say that Indra, like sorry, let's say that how do you understand Vishnu or how do you understand Krishna, for example? And so he was saying that Vishnu is Krishna is the incarnation in one sense, and
Uh-huh.
Vishnu is Krishna's expansion in the
Right.
spiritual world.
Mm-hmm.
So they're both one and the same, but it's just that like when when Vishnu's energy or when Krishna manifests himself in the material world, he comes as Krishna in the form of in that material body. But
Yeah.
in the spiritual world, he's Vishnu. So he's like any expansions are all in the spiritual world, but any incarnations they all come to the material world. So it's like so that's why there is a difference, and the incarnations have a different like potency about them because they are like interacting directly with the material energy in one sense, whereas the expansions are like in the spiritual world, they're like sort of they're basically attracting more of the spiritual energy, and they're like so that attachment is not there basically in the material in the spiritual world with the material energy. So the incarnation comes specifically to you know to deal or to sort
To
of
teach, to
to teach
instruct,
or to
as we
instruct
learned in
or
chapter 4.
yeah
Chapter 4, yeah, the
to
reason why
engage
you
with the
learn
material world,
from
yeah,
this. Yeah.
in one sense. So when
And
they when the energy like or when that the form of God comes down to interact with the material world, they come in form of as an incarnation. In that case it comes as Krishna, and so because it's Krishna it's even more like loving or even more relishable, because he also mentions that when it comes to Vishnu he has like 60%, he has 60 I think 60 personalities or 60 something, like 60 something, and Krishna
qualities.
qualities, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And Krishna has he has 64, four more,
That's right.
where
That's
where
right.
he has charm and things like that,
That's right. That is the
and
the Leela
Leela
Madhurya,
Madhuri,
Venu Madhurya, Rupa Madhurya, and the fourth one, the four special qualities that
uh,
make him irresistible. The charm of his Leelas,
charm
the
of,
charm of his Venu or flute, the charm of his form, and
yeah,
the fourth one I'm not getting now. Just a couple of points. Isn't it somewhere in the Bhagavatam that this is explained very clearly? The expansions and the incarnation, that he has numerous expansions, numerous incarnations.
yeah,
It's unthinkable. And although on the material platform we are always told that Krishna is an incarnation of Vishnu, Lord Chaitanya kind of confirms that it's the other way around, that Krishna is the source, and
source,
Vishnu, Brahma, and Shiva are three personalities that emanate from the source,
hmm.
Krishna. Vishnu, just check this out again in the Bhagavatam
Yeah,
and
I'll
in
check it
the
now.
Charitamrita, that the Vishnu, Brahma, and Shiva are three forms or personalities that come out of the source specifically for the purpose, respectively, Vishnu for maintenance, Shiva for destruction at the
there's
end, and Brahma for
there's
creation.
there's
Into
this, I don't know if you remember, it's mentioned in the Bhagavatam. There's this
yeah,
story
yeah,
of I think when Arjuna visits Krishna in Dwaraka.
yeah,
This is before the Kurukshetra war and everything and all. When they, I think, growing up, I think, or something like that. He
yeah,
visits Krishna in the in it's I think the 87th chapter of the 10th canto or something like that. 87th or 88th.
right.
So in that there's a story in that where Arjuna is visiting Krishna in Dwaraka, and there's a Brahmin in there, and the Brahmin is like he's like creating a lot of fuss by saying that that the Kshatriyas are no longer there to protect us anymore,
Uh-huh.
and
Uh-huh.
he also said that even Krishna can't protect me, because every time I do my puja, if I'm doing my tapasya, something happens and I get disturbed.
Right.
And then Arjuna is obviously like he's thinking that he's a Kshatriya and Krishna is not saying anything. So he's a Kshatriya, so he has to like no, I will help you. What problem do you have? And
Right.
then the Brahmin basically like says, no, no, you can't do anything at all. I don't have any faith in the Kshatriyas anymore. And then Arjuna is like, no, 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 I will help you. And then he's like, okay, fine. So in the night again, when the Brahmin begins to do his tapasya, suddenly, and Arjuna is with him in his house with all the bows and everything, and all ready to uh, make sure everything works out fine. But
Right.
suddenly the yagya stops, and
Uh-huh.
then the Brahmin gets again like, you see, I told you you couldn't help me and all that, you were like this, like that. So and Arjuna had made a vow to the Brahmin that if he couldn't do it, he would kill himself. Basically, that was the thing.
Uh-huh.
So obviously Arjuna was feeling bad and he's like, I have made the vow, so I'll have to do it. And but then Krishna tells him like, wait, before you do anything like this, come, I need to show you something before that. So he
Uh-huh.
takes him to so they literally go to the spiritual world.
Uh-huh.
And they go to the spiritual world and he's taking him, I think it's in his Krishna's horse. I think he's taking him in that. And as they're getting to this as they go in the spiritual world, they see this bright light.
Right.
And in the Bhagavatam is described that light is basically nothing. Actually, yeah, this is I think more elaborate in the Krishna Supreme Personality of Godhead book. So in that,
Uh-huh.
in fact,
Okay.
so there's this bright light that's there, and this bright light is nothing but the Brahman effulgence.
The
So the
yeah.
Brahman the
Yeah.
there's like outer part which is the Brahman effulgence, and that is something that Arjuna can't he can't see that clearly.
Uh-huh.
Krishna tells him like look beyond it because we are going somewhere further, and so then they keep going, and then they finally reach Vishnu's abode or Vishnu where Vishnu is residing.
Right.
So Vishnu sees Krishna and Arjuna there, and Vishnu says, "Oh, like I've been waiting for both of you to reach or to arrive here and all. I've been waiting for this thing and all stuff." And he humbly goes down and pays obeisances and to both Arjuna and Krishna. So this is
Right.
Vishnu like paying obeisances to Arjuna and Krishna. And Arjuna is also obviously like shocked. He's like, "What is happening? Like, how
Right.
am I
Right.
here? I'm in Vishnu's abode. Where all did I go? What all did I see?" And Krishna tells Arjuna that you want to know how to help the Brahmin here. You want to know the source of why the yagya is stopping. He's the source of Vishnu is the source of this. And so Vishnu is like he folds his hands and he says like the reason why I did this was because I wanted to see Krishna myself, because I wanted I knew that if I did this, then you'll come here and I'll be able to see you, and then now that you've come, you fulfill my desire, Krishna, to come here and do this now. And so
And
Arjuna is like, for him, he's like, what is happening? Like everything is so this thing. And so then they finally come back, and then everything goes well after that. So
there is a temple in Ernakulam called the Purnatrayeshan that is specifically this particular pastime or Leela. The
oh,
Purna
okay,
Trayeshan temple, where the version I have heard is that the Brahmana's children kept dying.
okay.
Children kept dying, and he approaches Arjuna to protect the children. And time after time, Arjuna is not able to protect. He so
In this is
finally,
I think something about Yagya or something like that. I think in the
all right,
Krishna
yeah.
Supreme Bhakti.
But
Yeah.
that's true.
Ah,
Maybe the Yagya was disturbed, and then that version got kind of conflated with some other
yeah,
story.
yeah,
But the
yeah.
Purna Trayeshan temple in Ernakulam, I think there's even a, what is it called? The Tripunitura. Tripunitura is a
Ah,
place near
Tripura.
Kannaya.
Very
There's even
close
a,
by actually.
yeah, there's even a little
Mm.
railway station there, and that whole temple it is basically in memory of this specific pastime that comes from
Oh,
the 10 canto, and that is why it is there in the Krishna book. Krishna book is nothing but a summarization of the 10 canto
summarization
in
of
secret
Tangyana.
form. All right.
This
So
story
it
I
is
always found whenever some like the Vishnu and Krishna thing comes,
right.
I always think of the story because then I realized like Vishnu is he's like always hankering after the love of Krishna, and he
Right.
himself can't understand Krishna because he's also trying to do all kinds of things just to get Krishna to
Right.
pay
Right. Right.
attention to
Right.
him in one sense. So
Absolutely. Right. Yeah. That's true. Also, Krishna has those four additional qualities. you know,
Yeah,
which we just mentioned, which make him so attractive and even superior to Vishnu. All right, so let's carry on. That is the
yeah,
12 Adityas. Please read the next para. It is said in the same Vedas. Yeah.
yeah. It is said in the same Vedas, Brahmanyo Devaki Putraha, the son of Devaki, Krishna, is the supreme personality. The Narayana Upanishad 4, then it is said, Eko vai Narayana asin na Brahma neshano napo nagni somao neme dyav apritvi na nakshatrani na suryaha. In the
Mhm.
beginning of the creation, there was only the Supreme Personality
Supreme
Narayana. There was no Brahma, no Shiva, no water, no fire, no moon, no heaven and earth, no stars in the sky, no sun. Maha Upanishad, chapter 1, text 2. In the Maha Upanishad, it is also said that Lord Shiva was born from the forehead of the Supreme Lord. Thus, the Vedas say that it is the Supreme Lord, the creator of Brahma and Shiva, who is to be worshipped. In the Moksha Dharma section of the Mahabharata, Krishna also says,
Just one
yeah,
minute. Do you know this about Lord Shiva being born from the forehead of the Supreme Lord? This is a
yeah,
bit confusing because I have heard that Shiva came out from the forehead of Brahma. When
Brahma,
Brahma,
even I heard that, yeah.
when Brahma is enraged, that the
Then
four
that
Kumaras,
anger, the anger
four
of that,
Kumaras will not procreate. His
yeah,
children, the four Kumaras, want to be celibate all their life and be brahmacharis, and they won't procreate. Brahma is furious because then his whole plan and his whole duty of procreation runs into trouble. So, in anger, that comes out this form of Lord Shiva, and Rudra. Uh, Apparently, he is called Rudra because that Dra, it is like equivalent to our saying ayo my god, like that. So because the very first time he appeared, people exclaimed in horror. He is given the name Rudra. And Shudra, that fourth varna or
mm,
class, gets that same suffix dra, because they are in ignorance and they are always lamenting and saying my god, this. So the Shudra mentality is somebody who is often bewildered and confused by circumstances and is always saying, oh God, this is a problem, that is my God, like that. Like ayo, like that. Okay, carry on.
yeah. In the Moksha Dharma section of the Mahabharata, Krishna also says, Prajapatim charudram chapi aham eva srijami vai tau hi mam na vijanito mama maya vimohitau.
Hmm.
So that is, the patriarchs Shiva and others are created by me, though they do not know that they are created by me because they are deluded by my illusory energy. In the Varaha Purana, it is also said, Narayanaha paro devas tasmaj jatas chatur mukaha tasmad rudro bhava devaha sacha sarva jnatam gataha.
Okay,
Narayana, yeah,
just 1 minute. Wherever there is a line, like a horizontal line
yeah,
above alphabet, it
yeah.
means long, like tasmat
Oh,
jatas. Yeah. And if
okay.
there is a not a hyphen, what is it called, like a diacritical mark over the s, it is a
Mhm.
sha. Jatash chaturmukha. Okay, go on.
Okay.
Narayana is the supreme personality of
Na,
God, and from him,
yeah.
yeah.
Lord Krishna is the source of all generations, and he is called the most efficient cause of everything. He says, because everything is born of me, I am the original source of all. Everything is under me, no one is above me. There is no supreme controller other than Krishna. One who understands Krishna in such a way, from a bona fide spiritual master with references from Vedic literature, engages all his energies in Krishna consciousness and becomes a truly learned man. In comparison to him, all others who do not know Krishna properly are but fools. Only a fool who considers Krishna to be an ordinary man. A Krishna conscious person should not be bewildered by fools. He should avoid all unauthorized commentaries and interpretations on Bhagavad Gita and proceed in Krishna consciousness with determination and firmness.
Okay, to couple of points here. The very word avatar, it means somebody or something that descends, that comes down.
Mm,
Therefore, that is actually the reason why Narasimha is considered an avatar. It's a form coming from the spiritual world, but is coming down into this material world to come to the rescue of a devotee, to give instruction, to make a point, to re-establish morality and so on. So avatar. So therefore, when Krishna comes down, it's also considered an avatar. But Krishna is considered avatari, or the original source of all the avatars. Just this is Lord Chaitanya who establishes this point. And the analogy or example is given of an original candle, and then from that candle you light another candle, and from that candle you light another candle. So the expansions are like that. They
Is
are
this?
from the original. Yeah, go
Yeah,
on.
sorry, please go ahead.
Yeah, so that is how they from the origin, like different candles you keep lighting. So in one sense it's the same, but in another sense it's not the same.
Okay. So,
They've said, go on.
so I had a doubt. Is this similar to like this? There's a topic where it's discussed about the fall of the jiva, right? Is this the
Right.
same thing or is it different from that?
Oh, no. This has nothing to
Uh,
do with the fall of the jiva. Nothing.
okay,
No, because the Lord doesn't have to fall down or anything. He's coming down
okay.
in his full powers to reestablish a situation that is favorable for the jiva to try to get out of the cycle of birth and death. It's not.
Oh, okay.
It's not at all. The two are not to be compared, because the Lord is coming out of his own. Yeah, all right. The Lord is coming out of his own sweet will and out of concern for the jivas. The jiva is supposed to have fallen down because he wanted to whimsically enjoy separately and enjoy independently
Uh,
of the Supreme Lord. So he's given an opportunity to come. And then when he sees this miserable situation, he's trying to climb out of here.
okay.
But
Yeah.
yeah, in one sense, what you're saying is true, that both come down. But
Mm,
for the jiva, it is a miserable experience and it's something he regrets. So
mm,
it may take him many lifetimes to come to that regret.
yeah. So,
He thinks he's having a great time and he just prays for more and more material benefits and another life and a longer life and heavenly planets and back here, and goes like that, the chakra. For the Lord, he's coming down, hearing precisely according to as is predicted in the Bhagavata, on schedule. Like, now we are waiting for a
mm,
Kalki avatar. Many thousands of years from now, but they come down as per schedule to play with a mission. Each one has a mission, specifically to as we studied in chapter 4, to re-establish the principles of dharma, religion, and so on, like that.
so
So there is a difference.
there is this question. I think I don't know which. There was this. I think it was Padmanabha Dasa. I think Padmanabha Swami Dasa. He. I think that's the name of him. He came out with this book where it says, "Is the jiva inherent, like inherent or something like that?" Let me just see because I don't
No,
want to.
actually, there's a whole that particular speaker I don't have much patience with, but the same thing
Oh.
what he says
Hmm.
is said much more clearly by Satyanarayan Das Babaji, who used to be in ISKCON and then he left over precisely this.
Okay.
You see what the issue is. Srila Prabhupada's books say, since you are asking this question, you might as
Hmm.
well be told. Srila
Hmm.
Prabhupada's books say clearly, Satyanarayan Das, yeah, okay, this
This one.
Padmanabha, I don't have much patience with back and forth, back and
Okay.
forth. Whereas I saw the Satyanarayan
Hmm.
Das Babaji talks just this in a very plain, simple way, and he moves on. Srila Prabhupada's books say that the jiva basically fell down and has to go back. Jiva Goswami's Sandarbha texts,
Hmm.
once apparently ISKCON GBC asked Satyanarayan Das, who in those days was very much within ISKCON, coming from a very scholarly Brahmanical background in Mathura. So when he appeared on the skis, they asked him to start translating Jiva Goswami's Sat Sandarbhas, the 6 Sandarbhas, specifically one of them, either the Bhakti Sandarbha or the Krishna Sandarbha, I'm not sure. When he started translating, he came upon this, that the jiva never fell down. Nothing falls from that. Basically, it was an adjustment for preaching that Srila Prabhupada made, because he was preaching to a Western audience that is used to biblical ideas like original sin, Adam and Eve, the fall of Adam, the serpent, the forbidden apple. Like somebody who makes a great mistake and then comes down to suffer. Because he was preaching to an entirely Western audience, it's very possible that Srila Prabhupada made a certain adjustment with the truth. You
Hmm.
see, he made an adjustment with the truth to try to tell people that we have to somehow try to get back to the spiritual world. Now, if you see Jiva Goswami's writings that were written in times and for an audience that was already very erudite, they didn't need these kind of lollipops to tempt them to give up a hippie lifestyle and come to a more sattvic lifestyle. They were anyway born into a culture that was constantly believing that this birth is only to get moksha, or this birth is to only get bhakti and go back to Krishna. So he could give them the naked truth. So he says very clearly that it is not that the jiva falls down. The jiva never went there. You know, the jiva is here, and from here we have to try to get back. And once we get back, we don't fall down.
Oh, okay.
So it is supposed to be an adjustment that Srila Prabhupada made, as I said, to because he was writing for a Western audience used to these biblical concepts, this forbidden fruit and the original sin, and then falling down to suffer, and Christ comes to take the sinful reaction and so on. So whenever his disciples would question Prabhupada about, then why did we fall, and when he would get impatient, and he say, it is not important for you to understand whether we fell or we didn't fall. If a fire has started in the next house and your house is going to catch fire, you don't waste time trying to find out who started the fire and at what time the fire started. You try to put out the fire. So similarly, it was his way of saying, just shut up and stop questioning me about whether we fell or we didn't fall from the spiritual world. Try and get out of here. Use this human life to develop love of Godhead and just not have to come back to the material world.
So that he's asking, is it inherent or inherited or something like that?
Exactly. But when Satyanarayan Das Babaji stumbled on this and started to inform the GBC that were very young at that time after Prabhupada's departure, took it very badly. They got very shaken. They couldn't resolve this contradiction, and finally he left ISKCON over this. He left ISKCON. He said, I cannot, you are asking me to translate Jiva Goswami's book. I am translating and you're refusing to publish it. Because it contradicts what Srila Prabhupada said. Why don't you add this kind of like a note at the end that Srila Prabhupada probably made this adjustment because of that, it led to some kind of big ghachpach between them, and Satyanarayan just moved on. And now his lectures are very interesting. I listen to a lot of them. He is now head of the Jiva Research Institute, Jiva as in Jiva Goswami, a research institute based in Mathura. And he is very fluent in English. He has a lot of followers with a beard. With some of it, he explains very simply and clearly certain key concepts. So that is the issue.
What is the name?
Satyanarayan Das Babaji, Jiva Institute. Yeah. Satyanarayan Das. Just type Satyanarayan Das and type Jiva Institute. That's him. This is him.
Oh, this is him. Okay.
This is him. Yeah.
Oh.
He was
had a interview.
Yeah, Shamala tipped me off about this particular interview with Namaras, and there Satyanarayan, it's a very interesting interview, because what when you talk of people and the way what things that life has, what twists and turns that particular person's life. He was born like in some rural part of Mathura where there was no electricity, no phone. He grows up and somehow he gets into the IIT. He must be in his 70s now. And then as an IIT person, he goes abroad. He comes to ISKCON. Then his guru kind of gets beheaded. It's very much an ISKCON person, Jayatirtha Das. Then he survives that. He comes back to Mayapur. And that particular Namaras interview itself is fascinating. It's Shamala who tipped me off, and after I read it, I started following up, and I like some of his I've so far listened to 3 of his, his classes. One is the mystery of birth and death. The other one is about something like how to deal with stress, and the third one is also on karma. How do we understand karma? And there he made a point that I have not heard so far anywhere, and which explains a lot of things. People sometimes ask, why does it take so much time for someone to get a certain karmic reaction? Okay, in some cases it is immediate. Someone does something very horrible, and then next to here he's met with an accident and he or she is finished or whatever. But the answer to why in some cases we end up getting karmic reaction for something we are not even aware that we did this birth, maybe we did it some other birth. So unfair. This is the question from his. It's so unfair. We can't even understand why it's happening. So he says that karma that you did involved other people also. You didn't do it in a vacuum. So often the situation has to come about where they are also again present in that situation to do that karma back to you. They are in a different body, in a different form. You may not even know. You're walking on a road, someone runs you down, you die. You see, but that situation has to come about because that individual whom you probably harmed very unfairly in a earlier life has to also go through different things and come to that particular moment when this is destined. That's the reason for this big time gaps and delays, because karma is not created in a vacuum. It's not we sitting on an island, we do something and then God makes a note of it and then gives it to us. It involves so many other things and people and events. So if whatever harm we did to someone has to be come back to us, that person who was harmed by us has to also be present in that future situation. Like that, certain things he explains in such a simple and unassuming way. Audibility, it is a little, because he's soft spoken, but otherwise it made certain things very clear to me. So I quite like his lectures actually, and I'm planning, I would download it, just not getting time to, because I got sidetracked by this Raji Malhotra stuff, which also from a material sense his analysis is also strikingly convincing. But once I finish with this Raji Malhotra, I'm going to dive straight into this Satyanarayan Das.
Okay. He's saying that this philosophy is Achinta Beda Beda. It's like
That's
simultaneous oneness and difference.
That is
That's what
Lord
I'm.
Chaitanya. That is basically coming from Lord Chaitanya. That we are also spirit soul like the Supreme Lord, but we don't have the extent of his powers. It's one, and we are the same, but we are also different. It is like a drop of salty water from the ocean and the whole ocean itself. Both have the same saltiness, but the drop is just a drop, but the ocean is an ocean. So Achanti Beda Beda Tattva is coming straight from Lord Chaitanya, and therefore it is reflected in the writings of Lord Chaitanya's followers like the Goswamis. And this Jiva Research Institute is all about studying Jiva Goswami's books, and he's got a setup in Vrindavan.
So he's written his own Bhagavad Gita.
He's written
And
about Bhagavad Gita. Yeah. Actually, it's the only slight catch in this whole thing is it's all rather expensive. Some of the, I don't know. I mean, maybe he needs to generate that money. At one time I did get the copy of the Bhagavad Gita. I'm yet to look into it. Its print is small, and supposedly he has some comments that are like they illuminate. But the lectures that I got access to are free. Then there are some that you have to pay. I think he's got a lot of Western followers. Anyway, don't want to make any. Yeah, but this Namaras interview is fascinating, and you have to give it to Namaras to actually touch an individual like him, what one time was in ISKCON, and even now he's very amicably, but ISKCON has some issues dealing with this whole contradiction between what Prabhupada said in the books and the Jiva. Whereas in reality, it may have just been a simple preaching adjustment that Prabhupada made to be able to, for it to make sense to the Western audience, this biblical background. When it's put like that, it makes so much sense. It's and why ISKCON and the GBC made such a ruckus over it, and I think they were also very new in their roles, and they got just so taken aback and frightened by the way everything worked out that they just kind of, and he went his own way, like that. Okay, so shall we stop here and not start the next verse? 9th we can't start now because it's just past 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
Yeah. So next Saturday we catch up again.
Okay.